Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Hello. Okay, so I think we're live now, and we're just waiting for people to come in. Okay, so let me see if I can move forward. So good afternoon. Good afternoon ba? Morning.
That's morning.
It's still morning, pero it feels
Yeah,
like
it's
the
like
afternoon dahil mainit. So good afternoon, everybody. I have here Mr. Joe Arciaga and Mark Nazao.
Yeah.
They're the creators of the Diwata comics as well as the yung Nurse Unseen. But we're gonna focus today on Diwata comics. Andito kami sa Filipino American History Month Festival with these handsome guys. So we're gonna enjoy the food later. We already enjoyed some
looking
drinks.
forward to the
Let's see the drink.
Yeah, it's
So,
a really good buko.
really good
thing
buko
from-
pandan.
From vendor's name.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah. So, ang daming tao. The parking is a little bit of a challenge. Pero, magtanong lang kayo sa mga lumalabas, are you leaving? Just park by the entrance and say, where's your car? They'll guide you to where their car is. So, ganun ang ginawa ko, kaya ako nakakuha ng parking. Okay, so, let me see kung ano. Okay, so I see more people are coming in. Hello, Tyrene. Hello, Ollie. So so these are the creators of Diwata Comics for those who just tuned in. And Socal Pinoy supports their project, and we have 44,000 members, and we could really help them out in their endeavors. So now I'm going to turn you over first to Joe to tell you guys about this project, the Diwata Comics. So Joe, I don't know anything about this thing, but I'm gonna read later. Good thing I bumped into you here. So let's hear it from you. Go ahead.
Kumusta mga kabayan?
Hi Edwin. Oy.
Hi.
Okay.
Actually, I want Mark to take the lead in describing the project. Pero I just
Okay.
wanted to let everybody know na this project is the first Filipino-American publishing company,
Ah.
Diwata Comics, that focuses on Filipino and Filipino-American stories. So,
Galing.
ang una naming title is named Carmina Beginnings, and I'm gonna let Mark, who is our editor-in-chief and our chief creative officer, describe Carmina and Diwata Comics to you.
Okay, so we're going to
Hey,
put the
guys.
focus on Mark Nazal, this
How's it
handsome
going?
guy here. So for the Diwata Comics, go ahead, Mark.
So yeah, so first and foremost, Carmina's full title is actually Carmina, a Filipino-American urban mythology. So a little backstory on Diwata Comics. I think one of the things we realized is that there really wasn't a place for us to be able to tell the kind of stories that we like, and also the kind of narratives that we would want to propel with the freedom to tell them in the way that we want them. So that's why we founded Diwata Comics. So who are we? Diwata Comics is a Filipino-American comics creative group. We create comics, but we also publish them, and we're focused on telling stories from our heritage.
Our heritage.
And right now, I think Philippine mythology happens to be one of our big focuses because like in a whole lot of ways, especially here in the United States, in a whole lot of ways, our mythology is so rich, but it hasn't really been as explored as it has been here. I mean, sure, you've got Trece that was able to do a breakthrough, but that's only one thing. I can kind of say this. There's strength in numbers, and if we really want our stories to become mainstream and to be accepted all over, we kind of have to put focus on not just one project, but multiple ones. I always say that Carmina in itself is only the first, because we've built some partnerships with different creative creators between here and in the Philippines to be able to tell more stories that actually have our mythology.
Very interesting. So now let me ask you. So when I look at the Carmina poster, let's put it in focus. I see like a ghost-like image and a girl, a lady, and a car or a truck, and a house that looks like an American-style house.
Yeah.
So is it this mythology is merged with like in a modern setting, just like in some some shows of
So
our American
I
counterparts?
can kind of say
yeah.
that. So the
Yeah.
reason why we kind of say that Carmina is a Filipino-American urban mythology
Uh-huh.
because the story of it is it takes place in New Mexico, but it's
Interesting.
about a biracial woman who finds out that her other half is not only Filipino but is also half mythological. So
Very interesting.
her other half is a Diwata.
No, I love it because it's not like your typical fantasy, yung merong, purely
Yeah.
Filipino, the aswang comes and eats the people. You know,
No,
this
no,
one,
no.
this one is actually merging, you know, our
Exactly,
mythology
yeah,
with
with-
modern
Exactly.
setting. So
it's, you know,
maganda to, maganda.
as
This is
far-
really exciting
As
for
far
me.
as the setting, I think it was really
Yeah.
important for us to kind of like give her a unique setting. And for
Yeah.
me, what kind of happened was there was a year when we took a lot of road trips.
Yeah.
And during those road trips, you know, we took the small towns and the back roads.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things I realized were there were a lot of people of color who lived in different parts of these small towns.
Right.
And one of the questions became was like, for one, how do they get there?
Uh-huh.
But also, what kind of stories are told there?
Oh, I bet. If
and
the walls could speak,
exactly,
if the trees
walls
could
could speak,
Yeah.
exactly. And you know what? In a way, we also, as we were developing the story, we also met some fantastic people
Uh-huh.
who embodied the story. One of my favorite stories that I want to talk about is there was this woman we found, and I don't want to name the name of the town because the town that we're using, by the way, is fictional, just so there's no real attachment
Right.
to real places because there's gonna be stuff happening in this
Exactly.
town. So we wanted to fictionalize the town, but
Oh my god.
we did find this Filipino woman in this very remote small town,
Uh-huh.
and strangely enough, not strangely, but really amazingly, she owned majority of the town, but she was the only Filipino woman in this town. where,
Definitely success
exactly
story.
a success story,
Yes.
but.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's kind of like one of our stories, right? What Carmina embodies is that there's not one Filipino experience. There are multiple Filipino experiences, and it just happened that we wanted to kind of like set it in the middle of an urban America. an urban
It's more
America,
relatable.
exactly,
So
small town.
yeah, so it's like kind of you will be able to introduce the concept of Philippine
Exactly.
mythology to our generation
Exactly.
because they could relate more to it rather than if you just say, "Oh, this is the Panday," you
Yeah.
know, and you know this guy, and it's all fictional, and you don't even, you know, set in the ancient times. It's not, you know,
And I think
relatable
one
that
of my
much.
favorite
But this
things
is
that we
very
did
creative
with
what you did.
Carmina is
Yeah.
that, it's not just an introduction for the audiences. It's the Carmina story herself. She herself is being introduced to Philippine mythology because
Uh-huh.
she didn't grow up with it. She grew up in New Mexico,
Exactly.
in a town where she and her dad are the only Filipinos. And then through a series of events, she finds out that she's connected to something bigger than herself.
Bigger than
And
herself.
that thing that's bigger than herself happens to be that she is half Diwata, and now she has to kind of
Uh-huh.
face a lot of consequences because of it.
Yeah, responsibilities. Yeah.
So by the way, you guys can see this is our this is our cover, but also just as a caveat, I'm sure you'll notice from our poster that it's a review copy, but it gives you an idea of what it looks
it's
like.
very good actually. It
Um,
conveys with the story very well.
Well, yeah, but I think
I love
also
it.
one of the things too, as a comic book fan, it was really important for me to create a comic that I would resonate with. It's like, and
Exactly.
here is her Diwata spirit mom. And also, I
Uh-huh.
wanted to mention we're really proud of doing this. Actually, the book
I'm
is
proud of
bilingual.
you guys.
The book is bilingual, by the way. So,
Yes.
as you can see here, it's in Tagalog, but the English translation is here. And I
Uh-huh.
think, in a way, that's why we founded Diwata Comics, because if this was published through a mainstream publisher, the main chances are you're not going to be able to tell the story with the most accurate voice because they're going to want it to be,
Yeah,
you know,
gentrified.
that's one
Yes,
word. That's one word
exactly.
for it.
Mhm.
They're not going to
Yes.
have the same sensitivities. They're not going to have the same motivations that we would like to have in telling
Yeah,
our stories. Like in
exactly.
my opinion, you know, if you're telling a story about a mythological character that's a Tagalog character, you should be able to read that, and you should be able to, you know, translate it as well. So
Right.
I think there's a value in introducing our language and our culture to a much wider audience. And as you guys can see, from one quick look at the comic, it looks like it belongs in a standard comic book store.
Mhm.
And that was one of the most important things for me as far as Carmina, is that it had to look like, if I went to the comic book store, it's right next to Wonder Woman, Superman, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It needs to look like it can stand on its
Right,
own.
right.
And that was the biggest important thing for me as to why we decided to create her.
And you know, one of the important aspects of this project is we're actually using Filipino artists.
exactly. So
And as you can see, that's world-class work. That could belong to any American comic. The
Well,
art.
a lot of our Filipino artists actually work for the American
exactly,
comics.
exactly.
Yes,
So
exactly.
Yeah, there's like Conan the Barbarian. It's a, you know,
I think over the years, one of the things
Yeah.
we've realized is that there were a lot of Filipino artists working for different publications, but doing their material. What changes for us is we're bringing world-class talent from the Philippines, not to tell somebody else's story,
Yeah.
but to tell our
Our
stories,
stories,
our
yes.
shared collective stories.
And this will be a very beautiful story, as I could already tell just by looking at it.
Yeah.
And I don't, and by talking to you
Yeah.
guys and the way you explain things and the way you want to structure this story in, our culture and then making it relatable to Phil-Ams, this is really good.
Exactly. So there's two things. There's two factions of this actually. There's two factors. Carmina is a Filipino-American mythology, but I will tell you guys, I can't tell you guys yet today, but make sure to follow us at Duwanta Comics on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, because we're gonna have some announcements very, very soon that talk
Wow.
about other properties that we've partnered with from the Philippines to not just tell Filipino-American stories, but also bring stories from books of mythologies from the Philippines to American
Yeah.
audiences.
Because soon you're gonna have a Netflix movie about this. Netflix
very-
series,
it's
right?
very possible.
Just like Creeped Out,
Hopefully. I've worked on a few Netflix projects. Like,
Yeah, so there you go.
What do you call that? I've worked on Lucifer. I've worked on Gotham. I've
By the
worked
way,
on,
Mark's too humble, but he won an Emmy for his VFX work
Very good. That is
for
very cool.
Gotham.
So I think kind of going
That's
back
what
to
I
that.
heard.
Yes.
I will say this. Being able to do that changed a lot of my perspectives. I'm sure to a lot of you guys, I'm very new to the community. A lot of people have probably never seen me in the community, and there was a reason for that. While I was working, in my early years, I wasn't as connected, but after the Emmys, something kind of struck to me, something snapped. After the Emmys, I realized I needed to do something more personal, and thankfully I found different groups like Film Creative and Film Arts and Film Chamber of Commerce. I met Joe, and I met Erica, who's actually a co-author. And by the way, for all of the feminists out there, Carmina's co-creator is female.
female.
So it's not just about a female, but it's also co-written by a female individual. So
I see.
and she
That's
herself
very good.
embodies Carmina as the character. So there's so many things that I'm proud of this book.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's about, I don't want to spoil the story too much,
Yeah.
but it's about a woman who's had some troubles, and the ways that she gets out of that is through the power that she finds from her heritage.
Oh, that's very
So that's
powerful.
kind of-
That's a very powerful
Without
message.
spoiling anything.
Yeah, let's not
Yeah.
spoil it. Yeah.
Right.
So, you mentioned you work for Lucifer, right? So Lucifer is kind of like similar. He's a mythological
Yeah.
character, and the show became so successful because they put him in a modern setting
Yeah.
and made him an anti-hero, and now it became so wildly popular. So we're looking to have Carmina, enjoy the same benefit of that
Hopefully-
narrative. Yeah.
Hopefully, I think
Yeah.
we want to be optimistic, but I tend to be a little bit more cautious.
Oh yeah,
a
of
day
course.
At a time.
Yeah, because if you're too optimistic,
Yeah.
you
Like,
know,
yeah. I think-
let's not get too excited. We have a lot of work to do.
Although
Yes,
I will
Yeah.
kind of share this. Carmina started as a short.
Uh-huh.
So just as there is a comic, there's also a short film in development that's already been shot and is
Very
in
good.
post-production.
That's
so
very cool.
There's a lot of exciting parts. I wish I could say every single thing at the moment, but most definitely do follow us.
With your experience, with your talent, both of you combined, and with the support of our people, our group,
Yes.
and the Filipino American community, will make it happen.
Yeah, I think I've always
Yeah.
said this. I've always said that this project could start in our community, but
Exactly.
the goal for this project is to
To go
spread out
mainstream.
of our community. Because
Exactly.
really, I believe there is a place and a space for our stories to be told on the world stage.
Yeah. We have to start somewhere, and you're at the tip of the spear in this one, and we throw our full support behind you as a group, our admins, our members.
Yeah.
And you just let us know what you need, and you feel free to post in our group about your things. So this is the comic. It's very high quality. I could tell from the paper, because I also publish marketing materials, and this is extremely good quality. Even the artwork and the
And by
stories.
the way, I
Yeah.
also do want to mention, and you guys can find a lot of these previews on our website at duwantacomics.com.
Uh-huh.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to make a shout out to Roland and Rafael are artists in the Philippines. They've done such great work.
Yes.
Very good.
If I could say again, I am so proud of the fact that this book was created as an international project where we have the writing team here, but we've got our two artists in the Philippines. Our calligrapher is from the Philippines. There's a calligrapher portion because we're telling some of the mythology through a notebook that was written in the Philippines.
Right.
So, Lorraine, if Lorraine ever sees this,
Oh, it's gonna be on YouTube. We're gonna
Ah,
publish it in the group,
nice.
and we're also gonna upload it in our YouTube channel,
Very
along with
cute.
videos of the other vendors here today.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a live video, so it's gonna be there forever, and we're gonna post links to the interview on our group,
very cool.
so
yeah,
that
I
even
wanna-
people who weren't able to tune in, they were still sleeping or
Yeah.
they're doing something else, they're eating, so they will still be able to see your videos over and over and over.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to shout out to Lorraine, who is our fantastic calligrapher. We asked her to do a handwriting for a certain character that kind
Ah.
of feels like Jose Rizal's old handwriting.
Oh wow.
I
Oh,
can't
that's
really talk about it that much
Okay.
yet, but actually we can show a quick preview.
a quick preview.
Okay, this is not the final artwork because this was our review version, but we're basically telling the mythology of the Philippines in this way.
oh. Okay.
So we're actually
So
Yeah,
I'm-
that's how
We're
I
actually
saw his
producing-
handwriting in his archives of
Exactly.
his literature. But,
So,
yeah.
so there's going to be some historical archives.
I'm an
Fiction. Yeah.
Mark and Erica are the co-creators of the comic book, but I'm an additional writer.
Because we needed somebody who knew how to write
How
Tagalog
to
very,
write
very
Tagalog.
well.
for the comic book.
Yeah.
And as part of the team, as the director for community engagement, I think it's really time for the community, especially young kids who are growing up as Filipino Americans.
Right.
Actually, they're more Americans of Filipino descent.
Yeah.
The kids that are growing up here. So
That's
I
what
think-
Carmina is.
I think that's what we're gearing towards.
That's very exciting.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
in a way, growing up, I've always been a fan of comics, but I've always said this, even though I was a fan of comics, I never really saw myself in them. Like, I saw myself dressing up as them, but the
Yes.
characters themselves were never me, never us.
Uh-huh.
So, Carmina, as an example, could be, oh, that's me. Like, somebody
Yeah.
could say that that's her or that's them because they can relate to what she looks like, who she is. She's biracial, so already that's immediate representation for a lot of people here who sometimes have trouble belonging because they may fit into two different communities
Right.
that might not be understood as much.
Right.
But that speaks for everybody. But her mom, not to spoil again, but Carmina's Diwata mom is the Diwata.
Oh,
of
so the mom
Diwatas.
is the Filipino. The dad is white.
You know.
No, we're playing it around.
Okay.
But also,
There you go.
the biracial aspect
Right
of her
there.
in the comic happens to be the mythological side of it.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
she's
so-
Pinay, but she's half Diwata.
Exactly.
So her other race is Diwata.
Pretty much. That's what we're playing with because
Okay.
just to kind of talk about how the story started. So Erica, who's our co-writer, when just to kind of like maybe throw or go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Erica and a few friends spoke to me about, hey, we wanted to do this project, and they were Filipino actors and they were Filipino characters, but their names and their histories and their mythologies weren't. So I was like, all right, Erica, let's go back to the beginning. Tell me about yourself, and we'll turn your story into mythology, sort of. So she's like, well, first things first, I'm half. So and then I said, Erica, what if your other half, wasn't racial? What if it was mythological? It's like,
Uh-huh.
okay. So that's really how Carmina began. And then after
That's
that, we
pretty
just
cool.
kind of built on the story. Different characters started coming in. Different collaborations built into certain characters. And in the short, actually, I'm really proud to share this.
Mm-hmm.
Her mom, the Diwata character in the short, was being played by none other than with Geneva, strangely enough.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was like 16 when I met Geneva.
Nice.
Yeah, at my high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
actually her character, right?
That's her
Right.
character. Okay, yeah, it looks like her
it's
when
her-
she was young.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
still looks good.
She still looks good. Yeah, she
exactly
still
like
looks
it,
good, yeah.
actually.
Yes.
She still
But
looks good.
this initiative, this story, this publishing company, and all of this is a full circle for me. Once upon a time, I wasn't the most involved because I don't know. I guess maybe it just took time for me to really truly appreciate being a part of the community. But after the Emmys, I really found myself in this place where I was like questioning what was it that I needed to be doing much further. It's like, yes, I could continue working on shows A, B, and C, but it didn't really give me the same level of joy and satisfaction and ownership that this project does. So while I love working on all of those shows, it was never a personal thing for me. It was always just work. Whereas this, for me, is a personal commitment to tell stories that highlight our heritage and our culture, but also in the framework that can be enjoyed by
anybody. Now, let me ask you without spoiling anything. Are there other mythological characters in Diwata aside from the Diwatas?
Yes.
Yes,
There's
right?
money. And
Yeah,
not
very
just
good.
Filipino,
This is
because-
super exciting. Yeah, others too, huh?
Exactly, and the reason I say that is because if you have a character, and there is a reason that we chose New Mexico, by the way, because as you
Uh-huh.
know, New Mexico has its own mythology. New Mexico,
Right.
if you pass by it, is called the Land of Enchantment.
Mm.
And so the future of the series is that eventually Carmina's Diwata character will be able to interact with other American mythological characters. You know, I don't want to name.
You don't want to
names.
name,
I don't wanna
yeah,
name
let's not
names.
name. I have a few in mind, but I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say
I'm
them.
fairly certain
Let's just
you
wait,
have, yeah.
wait for the comic book to come out.
Exactly.
But it's gonna be exciting to have like a, interaction between our mythological characters
the
and
others.
theirs and the Greeks. I don't know.
And you know what? To me, one of the responses that meant the world to me was when we were talking at Philippine Expressions Bookshop, and I think he was the kid that worked there.
Yes.
Cedric.
Cedric.
Cedric, the kid who worked there, overheard what we were talking about, and he just came to us and he was super excited because he was like, I'm a fan of anime, I'm a fan of comics, but I've never seen or heard of a Filipino American comic here.
Yeah.
So he was so excited, he was geeking out, and that meant
Yeah.
the world to me.
In the Philippines, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Well, maybe because in America, this is their country, so they could
Yeah.
put their stuff. But now
Well,
now
we're here.
now we're a
We're
community.
here,
yeah.
exactly. We
We're
are
like
here.
the second largest Asian American. Third, yeah.
Yeah, third.
So it's about time that we
had
we
our
get seen. We
own-
become
exactly.
seen. Isn't it? There's a movie now, Disney Raya. that
Raya
one.
is, Raya is
More
not
like
really
generic
Filipino.
Southeast.
It's more of like a shared culture.
Yeah.
They took
Yes.
different parts from different Asian cultures. Whereas, we were really debating what to call Carmina, and eventually we decided to really just own it. It's a Filipino-American urban mythology.
But the name is Spanish, but it's okay.
Carmina has been used in the
Yeah.
Philippines, if I remember correctly. I've heard a couple of different Carminas, and in fact, in our RSVPs, we've had a few people say, "My name is Carmina. Now there's a comic about me."
Yeah, yeah. It's more relatable.
Yeah.
The Spanish heritage is part of our culture.
Exactly.
So we
And,
embrace it too.
We saw this comment on one of our Facebooks, and I forgot the name of this person, but again, all of these comments meant the world to us because she said finding this comic was the equivalent to finding that magnet of your name because some of us don't have typical names,
Right.
Like, so imagine
Like
somebody
Nazal.
Well, that's my last name. My first name's pretty typical.
It's pretty typical.
But
yeah.
imagine being a Carmina, and you can never find that in the C section anywhere.
Right.
But then you find yourself in a comic. To a kid out there seeing that, that's pretty powerful. And I can't even fathom the value of the kid being able to see themselves in something that's published and in something that people support.
Right. Yeah, very impressive work. So, how could we help you with your project?
You know what, you guys, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We have an upcoming event at Philippine Expressions Bookstore. We're launching it on the 30th. Also, we'll be at Comic-Con, which is the world's largest
You'll be
comic
there too?
convention. We'll be there. Wanta Comics is going to be there.
I'm gonna be an exhibitor actually.
So,
Wow, okay.
we're going to be around.
Stop by.
Exactly.
Now, what are the Twitter and Facebook? How
at
do you
Diwata Comics.
At Diwata Comics.
Yeah, at Diwata Comics.
And the comics is spelled with a K, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Also,
At
Yes.
Diwata Comics with a
that
K.
was intentional, by the way. For a lot of people may not know this, but one of the reasons we decided to spell it with a K is because in the Philippines there is a very strong culture of comics with a K.
Yeah.
We've gotten to know a lot of them. We've gotten to really become friends with a lot of them, and we want to introduce their work to the rest of the world. And here, again, Diwata Comics doesn't have a single mission. It has many missions, and one of those missions is to showcase Filipino comics and really share that we have a unique culture just as Japanese manga and Korean dramas do. And I believe that our comics is ready for the main stage.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, anything more to add?
No, just again, you guys make sure to follow us on socials, come to our events. You can pre-order the comic now at diwatacomics.com. Yeah, those are all the different things. Definitely support us, send us all of the love. We read everything that you post in there, and it means the universe, the world, whenever we see the comments that resonated with somebody, because at the end of the day, as storytellers, that's what we aim to do. We aim to tell stories that relate to different people all over the world, especially people that look like us, because there's not a lot of stories that we see on mainstream television that is about us. It's about time that changes.
Yeah, yeah. And this is not like your regular Filipino comics, like fantasy comics. This is really something else. This is really a lot better, a lot more, unique. You could see from the cover what the story will be like, and I'm so excited.
I think it's the first Filipino-American urban mythology comic.
Exactly.
So we're pretty excited to bring it out there, and hopefully it won't be the last.
Okay, so
Yes.
thank you so much, gentlemen. And now it's time to enjoy the food.
I'm looking forward to
here
it.
at West
Yes.
Covina Sportsplex at Filipino American History Month.
Yeah.
And take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Great.
Let me
Well,
just
thank
finish.
you again.